Our next speaker, Mr. Ravi Dharamshi, founder and CIO of ValueQuest.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to VQ Inflection Day. Well, I'm here to set the context for the day. Why is this a VQ Inflection Day? Why is my presentation called Megatrends? I hope by the end of the day you have enough overdose of these words so that you talk about inflection and megatrends going forward. Why inflection, why megatrend, and how to benefit from it. Nowadays, there's a lot of buzz. EVs are the future. ChatGPT will wipe out so many industries, or it will replace so many jobs. And so many jobs will, so many industries will be obsolete, so on and so forth. Now, which of these visions in the future actually materialize, and which of them go on to change lives and create wealth, is a question that we seek answer for constantly. Most sweeping changes usually start small. Often an innocuous, and skeptics usually write them off. In fact, if you go and do some ChatGPT, it is nothing more than an entertainment tool at best currently. But the implications and the impact of this will be known 10 years from now, 20 years from now. If you remember when internet started, I can still remember that sound of modem in my head, and we were also happy with 128 kbps. And internet felt like a good to have tool. Some rich people will have it. It will never become a mass thing. But as you see, all technologies progress along a curve. The costs fall, the capabilities increase. And that brings about mass adoption, which brings the megatrends into force. Global megatrends are sustained macroeconomic transformative developments that may alter the trajectory of the economy, business, society, cultures, and our lives. Implication of these trends are both opportunities and risks. Indeed, megatrends exist at the confluence of several paradigms with interconnected world we inhabit. Trends overlap, leading to appearance of investment themes. Megatrends are all-encompassing. The growth curve of a megatrend resembles an S-curve. As the old adage goes, trend is your friend. Well, that might have been said more in the realm of speculation, but it applies as much to the world of investing. Especially when we are talking about business trends, which are prolonged and continue for a long period of time. Just take an example. Let's say you're driving along the road. I'm sure we cannot see more than 100, 200 meters ahead. But you need to know where we are going. You need to know the destination. You need to be aware which way we are headed. That's what megatrends are. Essentially, they are the harbingers of change, and we need to embrace them rather than deny them and be at the brunt of the disruption. Capturing tailwinds creates these megatrends, and they are the pivotal contributor to business value or the results or the economic results of a company. A company is likely to be on the top of the economic performance 4 to 8 times more if there are business tailwinds. Yes, everybody wants to buy great companies, but even great companies go through a long period of no wealth creation. A good company in bad times starts delivering results only when the weather changes. So megatrends are something that will tell you where the tailwinds are developing. So make megatrend your best friend. So just to recap, what a megatrend is, they are all-encompassing, inevitable, irreversible, and sustained. So technology cost curves They impact the world that we live in. It leads to obsolescence in the industry. It wipes out no longer relevant industries and pave the way for the new. In short, there's a lot of value migration that happens. So how does the value migrate? There is a shift in the value creating factors, whether it's profit margins, revenue, market share. The flow of talent and resources also goes towards the companies that are creating value. It not only flows between companies, but it also flows between geography. Today we hear terms like China +1 and Europe +1. What exactly is this? This is essentially value flowing from these geographies elsewhere, and the opportunity is available to whoever can tap it. Value flows between industries. So in 2007, when the smartphone was invented, the incumbents, Nokia and Motorola, actually did not see those inflection points. And it was somebody from the outside. Apple and Google were not telecom companies, they were not mobile phone companies, but they were the ones that launched iPhone and Android and capitalized on that trend. And last but not the least, the value flows between companies, incumbents to disruptors and adapters. What are the structural drivers of these megatrends? There are 5 basic pillars or the basic structure on which these megatrends are built. The first is, of course, the technological disruption, and the one we are most aware about. We always talk about megatrend and disruption with context to technology disruption. But mind you, megatrend is, this is not the only factor that causes the megatrend. There are demographic shifts. For example, what is happening in China today? They are suddenly witnessing a dip in the working age population because of the one-child policy that they introduced way back in 1970s. And India, of course, is the youngest country in the world and likely to remain so for at least 3 decades, if not more. Urbanization. We have a large populace that is dependent on the agriculture, more than 60%. No other country in this world is as dependent, the country the size of India, on agriculture. And agriculture contributes barely anything to our GDP. We need to move this population to manufacturing and services. And as that happens, as people move up the value chain, people also move away from the rural areas to the urban areas. Environmental changes. Today, the wind is strong. Everybody is talking about climate change. Everybody is talking about the net zero that we need to reach. It was not the case 10 years back. And the shifting economic power. Essentially, where the money is going is where the value is going to migrate, or the mega trends are going to get created. The combination and interplay of these factors is what leads to mega trends, usually interplaying with each other. There's a good framework to identify these megatrends or the disruption. There is nothing more that can explain it better than the video that I'm going to play right now.
There is usually a long period of equilibrium where nothing seems to happen. And suddenly, everything changes.
Take transport. Horses were the main way of getting around for thousands of years. Carriages got better, and their use spread, but the transport system remained the same. At the dawn of the 20th century, a convergence occurred that opened a window of extraordinary new possibilities. Innovations in steel and rubber production, the pneumatic tire, the combustion engine, made possible an affordable and functioning car. But there were huge barriers. Early cars were expensive and unreliable. There were no paved roads, no supply chains or mechanics, no manufacturing capacity, and few oil wells or refineries. Few people knew how to drive. Outside a few enthusiasts tinkering in their workshops, no one recognized the possibilities, least of all the horse and carriage industry, which dismissed early cars as a rich person's toy. But as costs and capabilities improved rapidly, the niche expanded through a self-reinforcing cycle of increasing demand and economies of scale, cost reductions, increasing investment, and accelerating innovation. The invention of the moving production line in car finance made cars even more affordable. The horse and carriage industry could not compete. Their deep expertise in the old system, their inability to see beyond their narrow lens, was their greatest liability. It's why disruptors always come from outside the incumbency. By the time the establishment realized what was happening, it was too late. The S-curve had overtaken them. Within 20 years, they were destroyed by a death spiral of dwindling demand, escalating costs, plummeting investment, and reversing economies of scale. Cars could go faster, further, carry more load, and created new market opportunities far beyond the niche of the horse. Cascading impacts were unleashed that changed everything. The transport industry was transformed, but so too were agriculture, retail, and mining, where we lived and worked, the structure of our cities. Cars transformed war, health, geopolitics, and the environment. They created previously unthinkable possibilities, both good and bad. This is our secret, a lens that reveals what goes on beneath the surface, where the complex forces that drive the patterns of change play out. Predicting the future based on past trends can help in times of stability. But in periods of rapid change, it can lead to big mistakes. That's because disruption isn't a straight line. It comes with rapid change and sweeping, far-reaching consequences that can transform entire industries in a handful of years. Who would have thought the smartphone could disrupt the oil industry? But that's what's so fascinating about disruption. It's not limited to technology, but has the power to change society at large.
Tony Seba is a world-renowned author, thought leader, educator, speaker, and entrepreneur. He is the one who's come up with this framework on how to think about disruptions, how to think about megatrends, how to think about the S-curve. Why there is an S-curve in the first place. Why is it that every technology eventually takes this same curve of adoption? So technology cost curves, actually every technology has a cost and a capability curve. They keep on increasing, and the costs are like gravity, they keep on falling. The most common curve that you might be aware about is the Moore's law, which postulates that the technology doubles or improves or falls by half in terms of cost every 2 years. Technology cost curves improve due to a combination of factors. Increased R&D, more investments, manufacturing scale, experience, learning effects, competition, standard ecosystem developing, and the size of the market growing. As many of these curves converge, it sparks further innovation in the products and services. These are the cost curves, the rate at which the technology is improving, and that's what leads to the convergence, and at some point, it gives birth to an entirely new ecosystem. So, if you remember in 2007, iPhone was launched. Within months, even Android was launched. What exactly happened that this happened in the year 2007, and why did it not happen any sooner or later? Because many technologies reached that tipping point in that year, whether it was computing power, data storage, digital imaging, network capacity, touchscreen, lithium-ion batteries, and sensors. All of these became viable, started performing enough, and that is why we could actually have a handle in a hand that could do way more things than just making a call. And that's how the new paradigm begins. And you can see that in 2007, what was 3% market share, in less than 10 years, was 81% market share. But technology innovation is not the only thing. Business model innovation also plays a role. Value is created because of the way these business models develop. It is every bit as disruptive as technology innovation. Business model includes the core logic and strategic choices for creating and capturing the value. So disruptive business models may have a totally new logic and a different way of measuring and different metrics as compared to the way of old functioning was. And that is why the incumbents mostly don't see it. And it is not in their interest to see it. Creating value. So this is an example of the business model. Because of this invention of smartphone, there could be an app. And because of the GPS and various other technologies coming in, you could finally connect a spare capacity in a cab with a person in need in a very convenient and low-cost way. giving rise to the ride-hailing apps, which we know today as Uber, Ola, Lyft. And you can see how the market share has shifted. And it is always, always very, very sudden. This so not only leads to value, it also destroys value in the old. These are the various X curves. Okay, S curves is the one that we see on the way up, but there is a Z curve which follows as well. The old and incumbent follow the Z curve, and the new follow the S curve, leading to an X curve. And there are enough examples in the last century where each and every technology has undergone the same curve, whether it is video, camera, insulin, coal, car tires, all of them have followed the same X curve. But the impact of this is not limited only to the two industries that are involved or the two companies that are involved. So, car was not a faster horse, and it did not have an impact only on transportation. It led to creation of two new industries, a huge network of road being built. It led to World War being fought in a particular way. And because of the World War, it led to pandemic. Of course, we had all forgotten pandemic for a good 100 years, and it came back to bite a few years back. But the seeds of influenza, pandemic, Spanish flu, can be traced back to the fact that there was disruption in the transportation industry. So again, just summarizing the S curve, there is a technology cost curve, business model innovation, product innovation, and then there are some enablers and accelerators, whether it is regulatory. It's nice to have, not necessarily a must-have. COVID, open access, which accelerate the curve along the S. But this is a curve that you might all be more familiar with, which is the Gaussian or the bell curve. If you see in this chart, there is a gap, the chasm. Not many companies or technologies manage to cross this chasm. So this is our framework on how we identify which are the companies that have crossed the chasm and which are the ones that have not crossed the chasm. It's a worthy goal to have, first of all. Along that, if you have crossed the chasm is essentially where the inflection point has been reached. It's a worthy goal to have, to be able to identify an inflection point. What we look for is, has the technology matured? Has the confluence of technology come to a point? Is the maturity level of those technology good enough? Or those trends not necessarily only technology? And are they giving rise to an ecosystem? Is the adoption rate increasing? And of course, these are all based on the human nature, so the software aspect. And more often than not, you will actually see it in front of you. Probably the younger generation would be the first one to adopt. And you see that it spreads eventually to the older and more conservative generation. And you can see something is becoming mainstream. I mean, there are 30 technologies that we are using today which did not exist 10 years back. And I'm sure our kids started using Instagram way before us, and we probably are still not using. But that is essentially the social buy-in that needs to come in for the success of a particular trend. And of course, it should lead to a financial result where there is a lot of operating leverage, the return on investment is far higher. So this is the X curve, inflection point on the S curve overlaid on the bell curve. The companies that cross this chasm are the ones that go on to create the wealth. But identifying a technological disruption is not enough. Today, many people understand EV is the future, but what to bet on in EV? Even some of the incumbents understand that, but they are still not betting on it. Why? And how do we actually benefit from all this? So if you see, this is an example of some companies that have successfully done it and identified inflection points, kept on crossing the chasm again and again and again, and kept building onto it. And these are the companies that have gone on to become trillion-dollar market cap companies. Of course, there are some which are probably more than 2 trillion. Even after the fall, a lot of them remain more than trillion-dollar companies. And these companies are not impacting, okay, maybe it's a US company, doesn't mean it's only the impact is limited to US. It's an impact that is felt through the world. And every person on the planet is feeling that impact. For example, Apple started, the first inflection point was personal computer. The second was internet, broadband, and mobile. And the next ones that we are probably going to witness is augmented reality, virtual reality. Everything is up ahead. We have no idea how this company will change and morph and ride the next upcoming megatrend. That brings me to India. Of course, Ajay ji very succinctly put how India is at an inflection point. But just putting those points on slide, we are at $2,000 per capita. If we go to $10 trillion, we will be at more than $5,000, $6,000 per capita. That is going to give a huge rise to the consumption boom. We have political stability like never before. Probably the political stability was before my age when we were still a socialist country. And that time the political stability was there, but the capitalism was missing. Today, both the things are present. We have the young and vibrant India on our side. We have a government that supports, the policy support that is needed for the industry to do well. And the first sign of that was visible in 2019, where the corporate tax rate was cut to 25%. Today, the world is looking for a new engine. World cannot depend on US or China. We need a new growth engine. And India is the perfect, it fits perfectly into this jigsaw. And we have kept ourselves strategically neutral very well. And then there is the climate transition that is happening, which is actually accelerating. And in India's case, India has gone ahead and wholeheartedly adopted the energy transition. And it is actually going to be an opportunity and not a risk. So every decade has some asset class that does fantastically well. Could this be India's decade? There are people, those who have said that this is not India's decade, this is India's century. I leave that as a question mark, but I can tell you that there is enough optimism, there is enough reason to believe that we have what it requires. Crossing the chasm is not going to be such a big challenge. With learning, we will be able to manage that. And that brings us to the agenda for the day, why we are discussing about these mega trends. Energy transition, manufacturing renaissance, financialization, and consumption J-curve. We are going to listen from the authorities in each of these mega trends as they build companies that scale and ride this mega trend. Thank you so much.